Chapter 11, Only a Dope Will Mope. Now, I have to tell you about a special word. It's called mope. My sister Jenny does it a lot. She's a real moper, Mom says. It means standing around with your face hanging out and looking like doomsday is tomorrow. Only a dope will mope, Mom says to Jenny all the time. Usually, Jenny mopes when she wants Mom to stop what she's doing and play cards with her or something. Naturally, Jenny always does her moping when Mom is real busy, like before dinner or lunch or when Mom is about to go shopping or clean up something. Not now, Mom says, and don't mope. The reason I'm telling you about moping is because that's exactly what Grandpa was doing, except he called it resting. He hung around his room practically all the time. When I'd ask him to take a walk somewhere with me, he'd just say, "No thanks, Petey. I'll just rest here a while." Sometimes he'd do his sitting in the living room, and that's all he'd do, sit. He sort of stare into the air, not even pick up a magazine or watch TV. Or after lunch, sometimes I'd ask him to have a catch with me or maybe walk down to the candy store and get an ice cream cone. "Not today, Petey, thanks," he'd say. And he'd sit on the porch or the living room and just do nothing. I'll bet in the first couple of weeks he was living with us, he never even went as far as the around the corner. He just sat around. That wasn't how he acted before he went to Florida and Grandma died. Back then, when I was little, I remember how peppy he was. "We'll have more fun than a barrel of monkeys," Grandpa used to say, and we did. He used to take me places like the park and the zoo. I was always happy when I was with him. I liked everything about him. His little white mustache that jumped up and down when he talked, the way he'd throw me up in the air and catch me, or spin around fast holding me in his arms. Even his breath, which always smelled of peppermints. I liked the way he'd toss me a ball and I'd try to catch it. I was little then and could hardly hold the ball, but it was fun playing with him. I know Mom and Dad were concerned about Grandpa and the way he just seemed to be tired out and moping all the time. We went out to movies a couple of times and to a restaurant, but Grandpa always stayed home. "You go ahead," he'd say. "I'll be okay back here by my lonesome." "Come on," Dad would say. "We'll have some fun." "Have fun then," Grandpa would say. "I'll only spoil it for you." I saw the worried looks that passed between Mom and Dad. But when I asked Dad about it, he just said, "Grandpa's a little tired, Peter. That's all. He'll snap out of it soon." Sure, I thought, but how soon was soon? Chapter 12, A Little Help from My Friends. "I don't care what you say," my friend Steve Meyer said. "I think it stinks." "Steve's right," Bobby Alston said. "Your grandfather is a room robber, and it isn't fair." "By the way," Steve said, "I'm invading Quebec." We were playing Risk, which is what we always played at Steve's house. Outside the living room window, it was raining like crazy. Steve's a Risk fanatic or expert or both. Billy and I can never beat him. But today, I was doing especially bad because I wasn't paying close attention. Steve and Billy have been my friends ever since we met in kindergarten. Steve is taller than me and thinner, and he wears these horn-rimmed eyeglasses. Maybe because he reads so much. Billy is a little shorter than both of us, and he has crinkly red hair and thousands of freckles on his face. When Billy was 6 years old, his dad hung a chinning bar in the doorway of his room. Whenever Billy goes in or out, he always chins himself a few times. Billy can do about 15 chin-ups. I know that because I bet him once he couldn't and lost a quarter. I can do 3.5 chin-ups. Steve can hardly do one. "Throw the dice," Steve said, and I did, and I lost another army, of course. And Steve had one more territory of mine to control. Steve looked at me and shook his head. "You're such a dummy," he said. "Look," I said, "he's my grandfather. What can I do?" "Put up a fight," Steve said. "Stick up for your rights." "I already have," I said. "I won't let nobody take my room," Billy said. He made a fist and slammed it into the other palm. Pow, right in the nose. "Right, Billy," Steve said, winking at me. We both knew that Billy always talked tough like that. But one time he had to face up to a kid in school called Phil Steinkress. He was as chicken as the rest of us. "I'm trapped, don't you see? I can't let my grandpa know how mad I am at losing my room." And if said, "What are you, a doormat?" "You can't let a room robber walk all over you," Billy said. Steve put down his fourth set of mismatched Risk cards and collected 10 more armies. On the board, he already controlled half the world, which meant the game wasn't going to last too much longer. He looked at me funny, and then a slow grin started to spread all over his face. "Just got an idea," Steve said. "Yes, sirree, it just might work." I waited while the wheels turned around Steve's head. 1776, Steve said. Billy said, "Huh?" The Yankees against the power of the British Army, Steve went on. Here come the Redcoats, marching across the field in close formation. That's the way the British always fought. And what do the Minutemen do? They hide behind trees and rocks. They shoot from behind cover and keep moving. What does that have to do with his grandpa? Billy asked. Steve sailed on. Do you know what the British complained that the Minutemen didn't fight fair? Fair? Steve, I began. The legend of Zorro. Zorro, Steve went on. A rich and powerful man who fought the power of the king. He had to conceal his identity because to fight against the king meant a certain death. So what did he do to help the peasants against tyranny? He hid his face behind a mask. Like Batman and Robin, Billy said. Close, Steve said. What am I supposed to do? I asked. Get a sword and fight a duel with Grandpa? Guerrilla warfare, Steve said, almost to himself. When you're trapped and there's no other way, you fight behind the rocks. You conceal your identity. That's crazy, I said. It's the only way, Steve said. Think about it.